The MC confirmed that he had received an order from the Patriarch to avoid battles until regrouping with the main force. Unfazed by the situation, Camus began casting multiple spells and inquired if it was an order from Baskerville's Patriarch. She asserted that a Baskerville should refrain from intervening as she intended to eliminate all the barbarian. Camo unleashed a series of powerful attacks engulfing a vast area in front of them with scorching flames. The MC watched in shock, recognizing the spell as burn. He also noticed that she employed a quadra casting technique for her burning spells, increasing their lethality driven by her desire to avenge her younger cousin. Camus continued to cast spells, resolute in her quest for revenge. Suddenly a barbarian used to blow dart and shot a needle that landed on Camo's neck. Feeling the sting, she realized she had been poisoned. Camus noticed a barbarian riding on the back of a wolf responsible for the attack. Unable to move due to the numbing poison, Camus fell to the ground. The MC observed her condition and thought to himself that she was quite a handful. The barbarian then threw a rope towards Camus, but the MC swiftly caught it before it could reach her. Camus acknowledged his catch and complimented him. Looking at her, the MC suggested that it would be better for them to retreat. Camus questioned what would happen to the farmlands and the captives. The MC replied that it would be wiser to avoid engaging in battles until the main force from Baskerville arrived. Refusing to retreat, Camus was determined to avenge her cousin who had been taken by the barbarians. The MC gazed at her and urged her to make a rational decision. However, in the next moment, the MC sensed an arrow attack coming from behind his head. With quick reflexes, he managed to dodge the arrow just in time. The MC observed the barbarian girl who had launched the arrow and wondered if this was the destructive power Camus had mentioned earlier. Lost in his thoughts, he was caught off guard as a barbarian approached from behind and swiftly took him away. Desperate, Camus called out Vikir's name, pleading for his help, frustrated by the unfolding scene. The MC contemplated the situation. He recalled a past incident when Camus Morgue, still an adolescent, had been held captive, but returned after annihilating the barbarians. Despite her reputation as the queen of La Rouge Tea Le Noir, the MC realized that he needed to take action. Suddenly, the barbarian girl lunged of the MC, launching an attack with remarkable agility. He evaded her strike. His senses heightened to his surprise. He noticed that she had used a bow to attack him. The barbarian girl then attempted to speak in his language. "You me, we meet again," she said. The MC looked at her and recognized her as the barbarian girl he had freed during the slave auctions. In his mind, he couldn't help but label her as a troublemaker. The MC notices who the barbarian was. He recalls seeing her at the slave auction as the one that he had let go. The MC asks her if she was repaying his kindness with revenge, but she tells him that she was a slave and needed to take revenge for her capture, and that it has nothing to do with him, just the Morgue family. She leaps onto her pet wolf as she turns to leave with her group. She tells the kid that she had repaid what she got and that they had taken the next leader of the Morgue family, Camus, and that if he wanted her back, he needed to follow them. The MC thinks about revealing his power here, but Uncle Adolf had arrived. He was shouting after Camus while bringing the reinforcement. Vikir sees him and thinks that he had run all the way here after hearing about the ambush. Just as Adolf prepares a blue spell in his hand, he calls the barbarians bastards. He unleashes the spell into the group, sending shock waves that appear to chase after the barbarians as he shouts at them to return back Camus. But the barbarians were unaffected by the shock waves from the ground, as they easily rode their wolves, dodging the attack and making a swift exit. They leaped through the rubble that the spell had caused that slowly disappeared from the base. The MC and Adolf, along with the reinforcements, could only curse and stare at the barbarians as they easily left them behind. The MC thinks about the Balak's ambush, seeing that they had finished the ambush just 3 minutes after the warning bell had been rung. Things became worse because it overlapped with Camus' carelessness and lack of practical experience. The MC notices that a subordinate was telling Adolf that they believed that the Balaks had run off to the restricted area of the La Rouge Tea Le Noir mountain. Adolf couldn't believe that the Balaks had gone into the restricted area of the mountain with Camus. Adolf thinks about the restricted area, knowing that it was undiscovered and a dangerous place. Heading there at night was going to be too dangerous. He thinks about Camus and wonder if there was nothing he could do now, but Vikir joins into their talk, telling them that they could still pursue the Balaks, catching Adolf's and his men attention. He tells them that he had been in the dense forest before in his childhood, but deep down in his thoughts. The MC knew about the forest because of his past regression, and that he had recon and subjugation experience as he went through most of the dense forest. Adolf grabs Vikir's shoulder because of what he just said, asking the MC if he was actually serious. The man behind that often informs him that going into the LaRouche mountain itself was a suicide mission, but Adolf tells him that he will only bring those that want to go and wouldn't make an issue out of it later. As the MC nervously looks at Adolf's hand on his shoulder, Adolf thought to himself that he already knew that the MC was extraordinary, but had no other choice than to rely on him. The moonlight pierces the skies as Adolf tells the MC that he will leave it to him to save his niece Camus. A metal fence is seen with a skull sign. It was the booty of the dense forest on the LaRouche mountain residing on the Baskerville territory inside the dense forest. There were many creatures such as the bone-sucking mosquitoes, poisonous thorny vines, silent spiders, and other dangerous creatures. A normal human being would never last for more than an hour in there, which was why it was called the life-engulfing forest. Something bounces off a tree branch. Adolf and his men are seen following a red streak of light bouncing side to side. Adolf asks Staffordshire if all the kids from the Baskerville clan were like the MC, but he tells him of course not, as the triplets follow them from behind. Yellow hornets with red glowing eyes appears just like the ones in Pokemon. The MC grabs onto his sword, preparing himself just as Staffordshire tells Adolf that the MC was special. The MC easily slices the yellow hornets into pieces. The triplets stare at him in amazement. All of them were thinking about how cool Vikir was. The MC peeks out from his cover, sending a signal to everyone else, catching Adolf and Staffordshire's attention. A bright orange glow is seen in the distance, as the MC tells them that he doesn't think that the barbarians have gotten far. He tells them of a rumor he heard that the Balak hunter would scatter dry leaves to hear the sound of their chasers. He warns them that they needed to be more careful from ear onwards. Adolf approaches the cure and casts a spell called Silence. He explains to him that this magic would prevent him from making noise as he walks. Adolf tells the MC to let him take over from here, and that he won't forget this, calling him nephew-in-law. The MC grows nervous at the thought of this nephew-in-law. A campfire is lit, showing that the barbarians were all gathered around the fire with their wolves on standby. Camus was tied to a string, shouting at them, calling them, and that once she was free, she will burn them all to death. She continues to yell at them, telling them that she'll show them the horror of her special fireball and that they should prepare themselves, but they ignored her. Two females were talking about how they liked the guy they saw before and that they failed in husband hunting. Camus began to breathe heavily from all the shouting. His sweat drips down her face. She thinks about how they weren't even listening to her and that they've been talking about husband and wife hunting since earlier. She wonders if that was why they kept ambushing them. But a foot appears near her. A male barbarian appears, stroking his chin, saying that since they capture Camus, all the males within the tribe would want her. Camus yells at him, calling him a perverted bastard, asking what he was planning to do to her, and that they should kill her instead. But the man cleaned his ears, saying he doesn't understand what she was saying. He grabs her face instead, knowing that she was talking back because of the look in her eyes. He licks an arrow as he stares at Camus, face telling her that an arrogant slave should be disciplined. But Iron interrupts them. She calls him a Han and tells him to get away from her slave. A Hunt talks back to Ian, saying that he was the one who captured Camus, but Iron tells him that it was, and to keep his voice down. But Ahan continues to argue, saying he was the one that shot the paralyzing arrow and set up the trap. But Iron tells him that she made it possible because she stopped Vikir, who was good with the sword, or else he would be dead. Camus stares at them arguing and wonders if an internal argument was breaking out. She looks at Iron and assumes she was the commander. She thinks deeply about how Iron had the skill to go against the MC, who was a low-ranking graduator, and that if she wanted to escape, Camus needed to do something about Iron. First Ahan continues to shout at Iron, telling her that he won't let her stubbornness slide just because she was the commander. But Iron's hand began to glow blue. She lets out an intense glare at a Hun, revealing a horrifying blue aura, as she tells him that if he was angry, he could come at her any time, and she would turn him into a bloody mess, Seeing Ai in this way send an overwhelming sense of fear into a Hun, he then decides to give up and back off as Ai and continue to stare at him intensely. Camus sees a Hun leaving angrily and thought that Iron had one eye and praises Camus' eyes and physique as she came from a good bloodline, but she kicks into Camus' shoulder hard, telling Camus that she was captured by the Morgue clan bastards and sold into slavery. As Camus lets out a painful grunt, Iron recalls for meeting with the Cure and that she was lucky to receive some kindness that allowed for her to escape from the fate of a slave. But her eyes were filled with anger as she tells Camus that she won't be as lucky and that she'll take her time to tame Camus so much that she would feel it in her bones and soul, making licking the spaces between her toes a daily routine for Camus. But an explosion erupts all of a sudden behind Iron. Iron turns around, and both her and Camus were shocked to see the explosion. The barbarians shouted out that it was an ambush, as some of them were set on fire, screaming in pain. Footsteps are seen walking through the fire. Adolf appears among the flames, calling out to barbarians that he had come to repay them for what they did. Camus was happy to recognize that voice. She sees that it was her uncle with fire in his hand. Adolf shouts to them to return his niece back to him this instant. The barbarians could only stare as everything was set, ablaze in front of them. They see that the Morgue and Baskerville clan members were easily killing each of the barbarians. The Cure was sitting on a branch of a tree, witnessing how everything was unfolding. He looks at the scene before him, thinking that something was strange. He wondered why the ball axe who ambushed them before so perfectly was now panicking this easily from an attack. The barbarians turned to run away from the attack on their wolves, calling the Morgue and Baskerville clans crazy bastards for causing such an uproar inside the forest in the middle of the night. But Adolf shouts at his members, telling them to not let a single barbarian run away alive. Just as two Morgue members chased after the barbarians, Camus laughs at the barbarians and tells them they were getting what they deserved. But a sound rustles behind her, causing her to sit upright. Her face grew, nervous as she slowly turns around to see what it was. It was the Maquis signals to her to be quiet.